Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, or hello if you are new here today. In today's true crime video, we will be diving into the case of Lacey Fletcher, whose body was essentially found decomposing and melting into a couch in her family home. I saw somebody talking about this case on TikTok not long ago, and I just had to look into it because I was very surprised that I hadn't heard about it prior, despite this case being quite recent. I could not believe what I was looking at or listening to, so I started researching this case right away because I wanted to find out more and share it here on my true crime channel. I'm really sorry if you can hear any noises during this video, just try and ignore them. There's construction going on the house next door, and I have delayed filming this for so many days now, waiting for it to finish, and I thought it had, but I'll try film around the noises, but disclaimer, this video is a true crime case, therefore viewer discretion is advised. We will be talking about an array of themes relating to true crime that may be triggering to some of you, so please make a decision for yourself whether you want to watch beyond this point or not. Otherwise, let's just dive on into the case. So Lacey Allen Fletcher was a 36-year-old woman living in Slaughter, Louisiana in the USA. Lacey was an only child and lived with her parents, 64-year-old Sheila Fletcher and 65-year-old Clay Fletcher, and it was said that Sheila and Clay were highly respected members of their community in Slaughter, and they were regular churchgoers on Sundays. Her mum Sheila was said to have previously worked in some kind of local politics and at some point also worked in law enforcement, and Clay, her father, was said to have worked in a non-profit charity of some sort. Lacey, from an earlier age, had been diagnosed with autism and social anxiety, and it was said that as she got older, Lacey was non-verbal. However, when she was younger, she was apparently very verbal and very active in school. She was on some of the school sports teams, according to her peers, like the volleyball team. So flashing forward to the 3rd of January of this year, 2022, police receive a 911 call from Sheila Fletcher explaining to them that they needed emergency services to come out to their house because their only daughter, Lacey Fletcher, had passed away. Now, I don't know the details of this 911 call, unfortunately. I would love to hear how it went down on the phone. However, essentially, the couple were telling police over the phone that they had gone away for a little holiday over the weekend. They'd come back to the family house and they had found their daughter Lacey dead on the couch. They said that she thought she was dead because she appeared to not be breathing. So authorities were sent to the Fletcher family home to begin an investigation, and upon authorities arriving to the house and entering through the front door, they were hit straight away with a very bad odor of urine and feces, and immediately authorities knew that something was not right here. They followed the smell and made their way downstairs to where they saw a couch with what appeared to be somebody laying on it. However, as they made their way closer, they realized that this was not just somebody laying on a couch. This was a body very, very badly decomposing essentially into the couch. The body was able to be identified as that of Lacey Fletcher, and her body was not in a good state whatsoever. As I said, she was decomposing on that couch so severely, and from a lot of people's accounts, she looked as if she had actually melted deep into the couch cushions. Lacey's body was said to have been partially naked, and she was also just covered in sores, ulcers, and some kind of insect bites. There was also, unfortunately, fecal matter found all over her body, all in her hair, and there was the presence of urine as well as maggots on her body. The couch was obviously in shambles as well, having had a body decomposing and rotting on it. It was said that the seat cushions Lacey had been laying on were completely rotted away. The foam or the cushioning underneath was all ripped open and exposed. Due to Lacey having her own waste all over her, it was transferring onto the couch as well, which caused it to rot. And it proceeded to damage the floor underneath the couch as well. It definitely looked as though Lacey had been passed away and decomposing on this couch for quite some time now, just because of the amount of damage to her body and the sofa. It clearly looked like she'd been neglected on this couch for a very, very long time. This was not a fresh scene. So authorities took Lacey's body carefully in for autopsy, and it was found that Lacey only weighed around 96 pounds or 43 kilos approximately when she was found dead. Keep in mind that this was a 36-year-old woman. The autopsy revealed that there could have been multiple causes of death, but most likely Lacey suffered from severe malnutrition and starvation, hence why she weighed so little when she died. Ulcer formations and bone infection were also found during her autopsy, and that actually led to sepsis. And sepsis is, by Google definition, it's a life-threatening complication of an infection and occurs when chemicals are released into the bloodstream to fight an infection, which can cause a number of changes that can damage organs / cause organ failure, resulting in death. It can also cause fevers, breathing difficulties, low blood pressure, fast heart rate, and mental confusion. It was also allegedly stated in the autopsy they found pieces of the couch cushion, like the foam from inside the couch, in Lacey's stomach, which indicated that she had been eating it. And this was probably most likely because she was malnourished and starving. So I'm guessing she was just trying to eat anything that she could. But at the same time, we just said that sepsis can cause mental confusion. So that could maybe also be a reasonable explanation, but I'm more likely to think that she was starving and she was just trying to eat whatever she could to stay alive. Now, once the autopsy was complete, it was determined that they believe that Lacey was left neglected and essentially dying on that couch for 12 years. She was on that couch for 12 years before she finally passed away. Like, how? It's just unimaginable, and I've never heard of anything quite like it before. It was also then ruled after the autopsy that they believed that Lacey's death was a homicide, so an investigation began from there. Now, I'm just going to quickly mention this, and I'm not really going to get into it again during the video, but some reports allegedly believe that Lacey may have been diagnosed with a neurological disorder at some point known as locked-in syndrome, which is essentially where a person is completely paralyzed except for their eyes. So I guess they are aware of what's going on around them. They just can't move, hence why it's called locked-in syndrome, because you're sort of locked in your body. Now, from my understanding, this has not been proven. I've only read that here and there in articles, but I've not seen any papers saying that this is 100% true. I think it's just all speculation because people find it very hard to believe that this girl was literally sat or laid on this couch for 12 years straight. So yeah, it's a whole lot of speculation. But then at the same time, I've seen photos of Lacey standing upright. As we talked about before, she played sports and was very verbal in school. So unless this neurological disorder came on later in life, then I don't know if it's true, but I won't be mentioning this again because I don't think it's factual information. So police began questioning Sheila and Clay Fletcher, Lacey's parents, because they just couldn't understand how they'd only just reported their daughter Lacey as dead when allegedly her body had been on that couch for over a decade. It just didn't make any sense. Sheila and Clay said that they cared for Lacey all the time. They fed her, they cleaned her, they did whatever that she needed. However, her anxiety was so terrible that she actually refused to leave the living room most days, and actually she would not even get off the couch most days. Her parents told police that she used to go to the toilet on towels next to the couch, so she would hardly move very far ever, even inside the house. But Sheila and Clay said that they never felt the need to call a doctor. Authorities noted that Sheila showed some signs of grief and cried a small amount. However, Clay Fletcher, Lacey's father, seemed to be emotionless, which was very, very strange to them. It was also said by some neighbors and community members after being questioned by the police that they actually had no idea that Sheila and Clay even had a daughter, and some other neighbors I think did know about Lacey but recalled not seeing her for at least 10 to 15 years, which makes sense if after the autopsy they believed that her body was on that couch for over a decade, then this timeline makes sense. People recalled Lacey as being a normal, fun-loving kid who liked to play with her neighborhood friends, but it was reported that Lacey seemed to be isolated and stopped playing with these kids at around 14 years old. Now, Sheila and Clay said that they did begin to isolate Lacey and actually began homeschooling her at around 14 years old, like what the neighbors said, because her autism apparently got more severe and accelerated at this time. This might have been an excuse from the parents to isolate her. I'm not really sure. One of the neighbors actually does recall asking Sheila and Clay about their daughter Lacey because he or she noted that they hadn't seen Lacey in quite some time. So they asked her parents, oh, how is Lacey going? I haven't seen her in so long. The neighbor for all those years just assumed that by now Lacey was older, maybe she had met someone, gotten married, had maybe some children and moved away. That's what they thought was a suitable explanation. However, the response from Lacey's parents was very simple and blunt. They just said, no, she's still here, she's fine. And that was that. It was also said later that Sheila's recliner chair was set up next to the couch where Lacey had been dying for the past decade, basically, or over a decade. And there was a TV in that room. So people think that maybe Sheila was in there whilst all this was going on, frequently watching TV next to her daughter, who was extremely ill at that point, which is just insane. Upon looking at medical records in 2010, it is allegedly stated that Sheila and Clay went to the doctors to ask them for advice about Lacey. They said that she was becoming more and more of a recluse and that she would hardly leave the living room or the sofa. Allegedly, a doctor did tell Sheila and Clay that they really ought to bring their daughter in so that they could check up on her. However, Lacey was never admitted and she was never given any kind of medication. It was also noted upon investigations that Lacey did not have any kind of carer, and the last time she had seen a medical physician was when she was 16 years old. So on the 2nd of April in 2022, Sheila and Clay Fletcher were arrested by police and were charged with the murder of their daughter, Lacey Fletcher. And they were set to stand in front of a grand jury in April and May of this year, 2022. A lot of people in the public were not happy with how long the police took to arrest the parents, since they found Lacey's body in that state all the way back in January and didn't arrest the parents until April of this year. But police said that they just wanted to make sure they had all the evidence that was appropriate so then the parents could stand in front of a grand jury. So on the 2nd of May in 2022, a grand jury indicted the couple of second-degree murder, and Sheila and Clay Fletcher were placed on a $300,000 bail each, and they both actually came up with this money, so they were released and allowed to leave jail. When Sheila was leaving jail on bail, she refused to answer any of the questions posed by media and news outlets that were waiting for her. And Clay, the same thing. The day after he was released, he refused to answer any questions. He just quickly got in his car, so they had nothing to say. So now, because they've been indicted by a grand jury, they will have to come back and most likely plead guilty or not guilty, and then from there the case might go to trial, or obviously some further court proceedings and hearings will come, but that won't be probably for some months now. People think that the Fletchers will most likely try and get their charge reduced down to a manslaughter charge rather than a second-degree murder charge, just so then they can have a reduced sentence, most likely, but no one's going to know until more news comes out. The one thing that confuses me, and don't get me wrong, I am very happy that Lacey's body was found, although it was too late for her. I feel like this investigation definitely deserved to be opened and looked into to give some kind of justice to Lacey. However, what did Sheila and Clay think would happen when they called up police and had them come to their house and find this scene? Like, it's very strange. Like, surely they knew they could not just play off a story that was, oh, we just went on holiday for a couple of days and we came back and our daughter was like this on the couch. Surely they knew that an investigation, a full-blown investigation would come from this, and it showed very bad neglect on their part as parents. I'm very surprised that the Fletchers didn't try and dispose of Lacey's body themselves and try and cover it up, since so many people had said that they hadn't seen Lacey in so many years. A lot of people wouldn't have realized that she was missing. It just blows my mind that Sheila and Clay were living in that house with their daughter slowly dying on that couch for over a decade. It's just unbelievable and unimaginable. And people were questioning, how could they live in that house, like with the odor? And reporters and investigators believe that the Fletchers may have just become immune to the odor because they were living in the house with their daughter for so many years in that state. People were also asking, did friends and family come into the house? And a lot of people said that they believe Sheila and Clay sort of turned into somewhat of a hermit. So they didn't really leave the house much, and they also didn't invite anybody into the house either. So nobody knew that their daughter Lacey was on that couch in the family house. The coroner who dealt with Lacey's autopsy, who, keep in mind, is a professional in his field for many, many years, said that he could not eat for a week after seeing Lacey's body, and that this was the worst case of neglect he had ever seen. He'd never seen a case even remotely like this before. Police and other authorities that worked on this case also said similar things, that they had just never seen a case of neglect this bad before, and so many of them cried after seeing Lacey's body. So at the moment, that is all I have on the Lacey Fletcher case, but I definitely will be keeping an eye out in the media for any further updates, and I will be updating you guys in the intro of a future true crime video that will probably be posted later in the year, because keep in mind, it probably won't be for some months that we have any kind of update. So I'll pop it in a future video when I'm able to do so. If you are going to comment on my video, please ensure that you are being respectful of not only each other, but definitely the victim, Lacey Fletcher, in this situation. If you're interested in true crime, you are more than welcome to subscribe or come and follow me on my socials, make any requests for future videos. And with all that being said, I do hope to see you in my next video. Bye guys.